Welcome back to Buried. This should and hopefully will be the last and final episode of this. So we are fighting for the same gun that we fought for in the first one. So we're fighting for it again because he tried to kill Amy for whatever reason. And so we have either forced muzzle towards Marcus or towards the tanks. The tanks are filled with God knows what, and Marcus is just a piece of shit, so I don't know what to do. We're gonna kill Marcus, because I really don't give a damn. I grunt as I push the muzzle to point towards his face. Realizing he is literally looking down the barrel of a gun, Marcus ducks his head out of the way. This makes him lose leverage, allowing me to yank the gun from his grip. I get to my feet as quickly as I can, swinging the rifle back around on him. For a moment, I think I've knocked him out, but his eyes flutter and he looks at me as if I've betrayed him. "Her people," he says. "It was them that did this. She deserves to die. She did this." I look to Amy and wish I could help her. I'm relieved to see that she is managing to draw in a few breaths. Her legs move as she tries to push herself into a sitting position. "You wouldn't know," Marcus says. "You didn't work here under their secrecy. You don't know what it was like to." He surprises me by lunging towards me, leaping from the floor like a human projectile. I don't have time to aim carefully. I have to react fast. His aim is poor and his strength is failing, so I dodge him easily. I don't want to have a gunshot go off and alert those creatures to where we are. Make a hard jab of the butt of the rifle. Striking him in his chest, something crunches and he lets out a whoosh of air. He crumples for a moment, and then goes to his knees. He roars in pain on the floor. Only after a few moments I realize that they are not purely screams of pain. The bastard is calling for them, calling for those creatures to come for us. This place is evil, along with everyone involved. He wails from the floor. "If you are taking her side, then you deserve to die too. If you want to stop me, you'd better do it now, you coward." The rage in his eyes at Amy, as well as towards me for stopping him, makes me think that he'll deliver on his threat. I raise the rifle again, every urge in my body wanting to make sure he doesn't come back to bite us. But I am not a violent man. I could easily not kill him and just leave him behind. Kill his ass, right now. I do not give a damn. I'm gonna shoot his little punk ass. I aim for his head and start to squeeze the trigger, but I can't complete the motion while I'm looking at him. Bitch. I close my eyes tight and squeeze the trigger. The muzzle bursts and I hear Marcus crumple onto the floor. It's not for another 10 seconds or so that I realize I've been standing still, frozen with my eyes closed and my teeth clenched. I try to avoid looking at Marcus's body and instead lean down to Amy. "You okay?" I ask. She nods slowly. "Have to go," she says, her voice raspy. "They'll be here any minute. Too much noise." I have to hold her arm so she can get to her feet. We start forward and then I think of Dennis. "We should go back to the hangar doors," I say. "Can't just leave Dennis there." "There's no time," Amy says. "You need to come with me up to the command center, now. We'll be back for him soon." I stare at Marcus's dead body for a moment, trying to comprehend the fact my own hands caused him to die. It is a turning point in my life that I will never recover from, but there's no time to weigh it now. As I look at him, another high-pitched static sound rings out of nowhere, or rings out from elsewhere. It's louder, more ferocious. Amy takes off, presumably towards the other elevator she had mentioned moments ago. As we move out, I look back once more at Marcus's body, motionless. We start running, and after the first few strides, another noise sounds out. It sounds mechanical, but at the same time, it also reminds me of recordings I've heard of whale songs. A sound of metallic creaking and crashing echoes through the door as I come in through. "They've reached a hydraulic door we pulled," Amy says, confirming what I'm thinking. The sound grows louder as it's clear they're struggling with it, which is good. We have a bit more time. I speed up my step to follow Amy as she leads the way to the other elevator. She's panting furiously but pushes on. I can hear something rattling in her breath, likely the result of Marcus's attack. This makes me imagine how his cold, uncaring eyes must have looked staring down at her as he tried to deliver her to death. How she is still forging on is beyond me. "I'm sorry about Marcus," I say. "It's not your fault," she interrupts. "At least you handed me the gun. I just hope we can find a way to survive this mess. We'll be fine." "I'm not so sure," she says, her eyes fixed straight ahead. I'm not sure I can blame her. I just wanted to say something encouraging, I guess. We finally come to the elevator at the end of a row of silos. The elevator doors slide open slowly. At that moment, we hear something behind us. A strangled sort of whistling sound. We step inside and turn around to face the biochem room. Thankfully, we've been given a few moments to spare. The elevator doors remain open for 3 seconds before they start to slide closed again. In those 3 seconds, I see a large shape floating towards us. A phosphorensic, like white glow outlines an impossible shape. Behind it, I see another shape that's also entered the biochem room, and another. The third one breaks away from the other two, taking a quick right. It moves with eerie speed. They are heading in the direction of Marcus's body. Honestly, the thought of them feasting on his corpse don't bother me in the slightest. Amy is pressing the button to close the elevator doors over and over, but they stay open for what seems like an eternity. I curse whoever designed these damn doors. I hide inside the elevator, because if those really are like light things, you ain't shooting shit. Amy and I slide ourselves up against the sides of the elevator, trying to avoid being seen, but I can't help peeking around the corner. I hold the rifle steady, ready to fire. That's when I see them in a clear light for the first time. I can see their features, their shape, and their colors, but my mind can't quite process it all. Nothing about them makes any sense. My eyes try to see a squid, but that's not what these things are. They are gray and white, and seem to be nothing more than squirming light. Their appendages are neither legs nor tentacles. Excuse me. But somewhere in between, they don't walk on appendages, but use them to glide. They move like ghosts and seem to jerk every few feet or so, but I'm pretty sure that this jerking effect is not a result of their moving, but my mind's inability to understand how they are moving exactly. It's also more than their appearance that makes a mockery of reality. The light around them seems to bend inward, as if the space within the room has to reshape itself for their existence. That peculiar effect on the air makes their movement seem like something moving underwater, only faster. They screech in unison as they rush towards the elevator. They'll be inside here in another few seconds. I check the rifle to see that my ammo is diminishing. I have to start saving my shots. I'm going to have to be choosy. Don't shoot. Let's not do that. They keep advancing. Even though I know the doors may not close in time, I manage to keep my cool and avoid firing off any more rounds. My finger itches to pull the trigger, but I resist. I'm not even sure if a gun would affect them. Finally, the elevator door closes. The creatures wash against the other side of the door, making an electrical noise and crying out in anger. The tips of their spider-like appendages poke through the wall and elevator door, but for some reason they can't get all the way through. Amy screams at this and curls into a ball in the far corner on the elevator, crying. I say nothing to her. I just cling to the rifle, hoping those creatures don't find Dennis, as he waits by the hangar doors where I left him. For his sake and ours, we need to get them open now. That's the end of chapter 3. Oh, shit, dude. How many other people decided to kill Marcus? That's really the only thing I'm worried about. I want to know how many other people killed him. 59% of players told me he'd be fine. 35% of players sided with Amy on pulling the hydraulic door. 69% of players gave the gun to Amy. 42% of players killed Marcus. You dumb motherfuckers. 68% of players conserved your bullets for later instead of shooting the creatures. Alright, beginning of chapter 4. Back in the elevator, let's go. The ride up the elevator is tense. I take a series of deep breaths, doing everything I can to stay in control. Amy has gotten back to her feet, but her head is pressed against the elevator wall as she suppresses a series of sobs. I find myself trying to remember the way those creatures look, but my mind seems to shudder at the effort. I've seen something that is an impossibility, a mockery of what I know is real. This fills me with a terror that dwarfs anything else I have felt since discovering the facility. I try to focus my mind on something else, and that's when I remember that I've just murdered Marcus. I killed Marcus, I say, the thought feeling like jumping into cold water. Had you ever killed anyone before? Amy asked. No. He was going to kill me, she says. I'm sure of it. Probably. Well, thank you, she says, but her tone is unsteady and her face is unreadable. Of course. I guess he deserved it, she says. Her comment hangs in the air for a moment as we wait for the elevator to stop. So, I say, how did you end up here? She gives a nervous chuckle and shrugs. I used to work with the Pentagon. It was some pretty upper echelon stuff that I still can't discuss. I assume that this place is even more upper echelon. I don't freaking know, I said. This place isn't even on the scale, she answers. My other job was a cakewalk compared to this. Then why stay? Because the money is ridiculous. I have a 13-year-old daughter already talking about Harvard. You do the math. Harvard? That's ambitious. Oh, I know. She's a force of nature. Her dad ran off when she was 3, so for a long time it's just been her and me. Amy pauses before continuing softly. What if I'd never see? Her voice breaks off, the words too terrible to say. Her eyes fill with tears. The elevator comes to a stop, the slight ding of it interrupting the moment. Amy hastily wipes her eyes, and we waste no time in getting back inside the command center. I ready the rifle, suddenly certain that there are more of those creatures waiting for us in the hallway of the second level. But the way is clear, allowing us to haul ass to the command center. Once again, I find myself staring at the screen that shows my ruined work site. Okay, Amy says, typing commands rapidly. It can't be that hard. I keep peeking over my shoulder, my senses feeling as if the monsters are sneaking up on us, mere inches away. I then think of Dennis and wonder how he is faring back on level 3. Is he safe? I look back to the screens and see that Amy has finally found what she is looking for. A prompt on the screen says, override of hangar doors and all level 3 locks requires clearance code. Amy types in a number with shaking fingers and the screen goes black for a moment. The moment the words override confirm come up on the screen, Amy jumps up from the chair and heads out of the room. We have to be quick, she says. We have exactly 20 minutes to open those hangar doors. Let's get moving. I follow her out of the command center and bound back down the hallway towards the same elevator that brought us here. Amy punches the elevator button and the doors slide open. We're taking the same elevator back to the biochem room, I ask. Those creatures are still down there. It's the only way back down, she says. The other way is blocked by those hydraulic doors we pulled. Hopefully the creatures left. Hopefully. Neither of us say anything else as we share a look of immense dread. We step back into the elevator and head back down to the biochem room on level 3. I wonder what does happen in 20 minutes, though. I'd almost be scared to find out. As the elevator doors open, we peer out, looking to see if the creatures are still in the area. But it's all clear. When Amy looks to me, her eyes are clear and strong. Marcus wasn't entirely wrong, Amy says as we start walking back towards the hangar doors. About what? I ask. About how I am partially to blame for this. Why would you be to blame? Some of the things we do here, it's scary. We should have known that one day something like this would happen. Everyone here with knowledge of what goes on in level 3 is to blame, she says. It's a highly advanced research facility, I say, doing amazing but risky stuff. So yeah, you're partially to blame by just working here, but I can understand the dedication. So why don't you tell me a bit more about what does go on in level 3, I ask. Are you familiar with the Large Hadron Collider over in Switzerland? I've heard the phrase, but that's about it. It's a powerful particle accelerator, she explains. Right now they're just using it to try to create what's called dark matter. It's theorized that this dark matter actually makes up the majority of the universe, but parts of the universe very different from ours. My guess is the people at the LHC will probably create their first dark matter particle in about 2018 or 2019. Here in this facility, we are able to create almost 10 years ago. It was the key to our research. Does this have something to do with those things? Well, we still don't know all there is to know, or all there is about dark matter, or other matter we have yet to identify. These creatures could be made of it, or maybe they are some even more exotic matter we just don't know. If dark matter is responsible, there are no real answers to have. I scratch my head. So you're saying this dark matter helps with what? Opening up other dimensions or something? That's the theory, she says. During the point-to-point transfer, the subjects are gone for about 3 to 6 seconds. There's no way to see or measure their presence, but they exist somewhere. From what we could tell, they exist in a kind of void. What is this? What is that place like? We don't know. There may be an infinite number of voids or spaces. Some of them appear to just be nothingness, a vacuum of exotic matter. We're talking about places that we can only measure with instruments. What does that mean? I ask. Do you know what these places look like? No. It means in order to describe it to you, you'd have to be a mathematician, and I'd have to walk you through reams of data and equations. So, even though we can describe them, we're still a long way from figuring out what these places look like. Sorry, I asked. I say, feeling my mind start to bend inward again. As we continue to walk between the silos, we walk past the area where we left Marcus's body. I barely even glance at his body, still unable to believe that I was responsible for killing him. I also don't want to look at additional damage the monsters caused. A pool of blood and mangled clothes are all I see through the corner of my eye. I realize that we are walking very close together between the silos, perhaps trying to create an illusion of safety. We reach the exit connecting to the hangar doors where Dennis hopefully still is. My guts clench and my heart hammers in my chest as we open the door and walk through. I lift the rifle, but at first it seems that there's nothing waiting for us. And that's when I see the glowing, hulking shape to my left, closing in fast. Oh, shit. Well, this is never good. We're about to get our asses kicked. The creature's about 10 feet away and coming in quickly, so I do the first thing that comes to mind. I drop to the ground, making myself a smaller target, and raise the rifle. I'm not sure if I should just unload on the bastard or just try to be choosy with my shots and weaken it, or at least slow it down. Oh, piss. I'm gonna shoot to weaken. My shots cause the entire milky white frame to jerk to the floor. It flounders, its ghost-like tentacles writhing with rage as it cries out at me. It seems to turn and jerk away, parts of it appearing and disappearing every few feet. It moves down the hall and out of sight. I look quickly around for others, but there is only Amy. She looks at where the monsters went, with wide eyes. Her face is pale, and I wonder if, like me, she's able to feel her mind trying to retreat. Come on, I say, let's find Dennis and get through those hangar doors. Amy glances at her watch and nods. We're already down to 6 minutes. We turn towards the hangar doors, and I'm a little disgusted with myself because the bloody scene that's so shocked me before now seems mild. Amy goes to work on the computer console on the side of the door. She starts punching in keys before saying this is going to take some time. I thought you already unlocked it, I ask. I did, she says, but for this door there's still security permissions I need to hack. Marcus would have known how to do this. She trails off, and I decide to let her work. Suddenly, something slams into me. I feel my feet leave the floor, and I am literally thrown across the concrete. I look up in time to see one of the creatures. It's apparently in no hurry to attack me again, focusing on Amy instead. She's not armed. I need to come up with a plan to get this thing away from her so she can focus on getting the door open. It rises one of its flickering appendages, making me certain that part of its makeup is pure light and energy. I could easily take a shot with my rifle, but my mind again goes to how much remaining ammo I have. The only other thing I can think of is to get it to chase me and lead it away from this room. Somewhere. We're gonna haul ass, fellers. Hey, I yell. Right here, come get me. I'm the one that shot your buddy. Damn. It turns to me and I am again faced with staring at something that has no business in this world, in this reality. Its body gives off a short glow around the central part, a bulbous core that is branched off into two humps, very much like a spider. Again, I sense that this visual information is not accurate, but it's the best my simple mind can do to make sense of this impossible creature. It starts lurching towards me, lets out a shriek of agony that makes my ears feel like they will explode. Now I am sure it's coming after me. I take off running and head into another hallway we haven't been down. I find myself in an industrial-looking area and am pleased to find that the monster has followed me through. Well, hopefully this still yet don't result in Amy getting freaking murdered. I'd be pissed. The room seems to be an assortment of old pipes and tanks. I assume some of them run further down into other areas of the facility. With the creature on my tail, I dash into the maze of metal, hoping to lose it. It's definitely having a harder time squeezing through than I am, and that slows it down. Of course, the room's not a cage of any kind. The thing is still heading towards me, shredding through the pipes as it rages. I notice that sometimes it is breaking the steel girders, but other times it seems it's somehow merging or changing them. Pipes that were separate are now connected together in a way that makes my head hurt. I finally get a good amount of distance between myself and the creature. I think it's lost my trail. I need to get back to those hangar doors. There's not much time before they close shut. But if I make a sound, that creature could be on my heels again. Hide and escape quickly. I take care to stay silent, twisting myself through some more pipes and making my way back towards the door I entered through. The creature doesn't seem to pick up on this. I see it's glowing back as I come around. It just lets out a static scream that makes my insides feel like jelly. But I don't even look back. I slide quietly through the rusted obstacle course and tiptoe back to the hangar doors. I burst back into the large room and see Amy still working on the computer terminal by the hangar doors. "You okay?" I ask Amy. I can clearly see her battling for control of her faculties. Steel determination wins out, and she gives a grim nod. "Any sign of where Dennis went?" I ask, hoping she hasn't noticed his body somewhere. "No," she replies. It's then that I realize I have no idea how many rounds I have remaining in the rifle. This isn't a model I'm familiar with outside of some deer hunting. I'm not much of an expert on firearms. Still, I am able to locate the chamber easily and see that there are 4 rounds left. Not great, but it could be worse. "How are we on time?" I ask her. 2 minutes. I'm going as fast as I can," she says. Amy does her best to focus on the keyboard, but there is still no sign of Dennis. Before I have time to look around, a screeching sound erupts from the other end of the room. I bring the rifle up in a shooter's stance and turn around. With the hangar doors right behind me, no sign of Dennis, and a closing window of time, I have to be confident. Yet, when 2 monsters come around the corner, my body wants to shut down. The appendages seem to jump in time and space, reaching out for a split second, independent of the body, and then disappearing back to where they come from. It turns and screeches at me, its glowing tentacles snaking out of its body. My knees tremble uncontrollably. Behind me, Amy shrieks. I feel myself losing control, my mind sliding into the abyss of insanity. I pull myself back from the brink and I've got to stay in control. We're gonna shoot they ass. I step away from Amy in the hangar doors toward the monster, ready to defend her. I ready my rifle, but the creature wastes no time. It makes that jerky motion towards me, and there's a sharp pain in my chest as it collides with me. Or through me, it's hard to tell. My instinct is to try to grapple or hold this thing down, but then I realize I don't even know if that'll work. We gonna try to grab this bitch. We gonna ride this bitch like a bull. 10 seconds. I try to grapple with the creature, but it feels very different from my struggle with Marcus earlier. It's not easily grabbed. My fingers slide through parts of it, some parts like a ghost, others like a jellyfish. Touching it burns my hands, but only slightly. When I realize I cannot grip it, I quickly spring away and turn to face it. With a scream of defiance, I raise the rifle and put a round in its core. The shot lands dead center and the light inside it flickers almost violently. It falls back against the wall, issuing a hiss of its telltale static noise. It then jerks away and retreats, at least for now. Another terror appears, as if out of nowhere, screaming at me with its high-pitched whine. It bounced forward, charging in its strange, spastic way. I aim the rifle, intending to take this one in the core too. I take several shots, but it's still coming at me. As it slams into me, I realize that I only have one bullet left. On contact, the wind is knocked out of my lungs and the back of my head strikes the floor. But neither of these things is as alarming as the fact that the beast is on top of me. Its exterior is like a seashell that has been pounded by the surf for so long that it has lost all edges and ridges. But the grip it tries to capture me with its pure violence. I feel those light-soaked appendages start to wrap around me. I raise the rifle knowing I still have one shot left. The weight of the monster is erratic. One moment I feel weightless, another I feel like I'm going to be crushed. I push upwards with the rifle to aim, but it is overpowering me. I'm not sure I'd be able to get an effective shot off. I see the core of its body, spider-like shape, connected to the rest of it by thin white strings of tissue. I know I'll be dead within seconds unless I can manage a shot, but I don't know where to aim. This thing has already survived for too long. Shoot for the center. The creature is seconds away from tearing into my shoulder. I have to stop it now. I grunt as I try to angle the rifle in the direction of the beast's formless core. The appendages begin to tuggle down on the barrel, and it's at that moment I pull the trigger, unleashing my final shot. Thank God I saved this bullet earlier. The shot aggravates it enough to win me some breathing room. I've saved my shoulder, but this thing is still alive and kicking. But then I see the creature extend its tentacles in a violent whip-like motion away from me while it makes that static screeching sound. The creature disappears into thin air and reappears a few feet from me, retreating. With a shudder and a cry of desperation, I get to my feet just in time to see the monster head in the direction of the biochem room. Amy looks over at me from her terminal at the hangar doors, looking petrified. I manage to help myself up when I see another figure nearing us, but to my relief, I realize it's a human figure, Dennis, with a gun. "You okay, boss?" he asks. But his eyes aren't on me. They are looking to the creature, trying to understand exactly what he has just seen. "About 15 minutes ago, I heard the door to that maintenance room unlock," Dennis says, pointing to the room I tried to bust my way into earlier. "Ah," Amy says. "When I did the override up in the command center, it unlocked all small doors down here, including that maintenance room. I went inside there and hid," Dennis continues, "and while I was waiting for you to come back, I found a massive trunk. There were a few guns in it, so I grabbed this one," he says, patting his shotgun. "I'm glad you found some weapons, damn it." "Yeah, no problem," he says. "Great. Now, how's that door coming along?" I ask Amy. She makes a few final key presses and says, "Done." The doors open with the noise of hydraulics and a whoosh of air. Dennis, Amy, and I climb up and head through the doors, moving on nothing more than adrenaline. I see her look longingly at the maintenance room Dennis took the shotgun from. "You get into that hangar," Dennis says. "I'll get some more firepower." Satisfied with that plan, Amy heads through the door. We scramble inside, finally inside the hangar. Dennis approaches from behind, holding several guns and looking like a kid who grabbed an armful of Halloween candy. Amy reaches out for a 9mm with one hand. Dennis turns to me and holds out a shotgun and a handgun for me to choose. Both look deadly. The shotgun looks more powerful, but the handgun will probably be more precise. Definitely taking the handgun. I select the handgun and am comforted by the way it seems to fit perfectly in my shaky grip. There are more creatures coming, as many as a dozen. They are floating down the hall quickly, their tentacles slithering. The way their light seems to mangle together is almost beautiful. Close the door, I yell at Amy. She dashes to another terminal, mounted on the inside of the hangar doors, and tries desperately to close them. It's not working, she says with tears in her eyes. This terminal is disabled. Dennis looks through the doors, readying himself to shoot the first monster that nears us. Should we try to slow a few down or just run for it? He asked, his gun at the ready. I'm running. I ain't wasting no more shots. Good idea, says Amy. With that, we turn around and sprint out onto the hangar floor. Dock 2. The room is enormous, so large that to call it a room seems silly. A large concrete floor stretches out below an expansive lofted ceiling. The area is mostly empty except for one side, which has rows and rows of metal barrels. Back on the far wall is a lit area that seems to expose more rooms, labs, and machinery. Also in the rear of the hangar, I can see some kind of chamber or control center. Dennis and I follow Amy across the hangar floor. Behind us, a series of rough, slithering sounds tells us that the creatures have made their way into the hangar. From somewhere up ahead, a loud buzzing noise sounds out. It reminds me of the slight buzzing noise I'd heard in the forest, but the noise that got me into all of this trouble in the first place. I look ahead and see, in the far back of the hangar, a bright red light is flashing. There is a small hatch or door below the light. That hatch is open, and I can see a shape inside it. I can barely make out the figure of a man standing there holding an industrial microphone, and as soon as I see him, I hear his huge, amplified voice. It blares down over an intercom system, and he sounds pissed. I don't know who the hell you are, he says, but this is a government facility on lockdown, and there are protocols to shit. I assume the curse coincides with the exact moment he sees the creatures. They are making their way through the hangar doors. There are maybe 20 feet between us and the creatures. I act instinctively, firing twice as the handgun comes alive in my hands. One shot goes into the core of one monster, causing it to jerk backwards. Another shot slows down another. The accuracy I get with the 9mm is amazing. Amy and Dennis take the cue and start firing as well. The floor becomes littered with a swirling white fluid from the wounded creatures' bodies. But they're not slowing down. The alarm keeps shrieking behind us, and when I turn to see if anything has changed back there, I trip over my feet. I hit the ground hard in an almost comic fashion, slide several feet across the floor. From the ground, I see that we have managed to turn back 4 of them, but I also see that my estimate of a dozen is off. There are at least 20 of them. Their sick, dim light, sinister and gloomy. Their appendages seem to bind together as they come forward. My only hope of survival is that the man in the far doorway has somehow shuts that hangar door. His voice comes blaring over the intercom again, broken by the booming noise of the gunfire that we are laying down. Run here, towards the isolation chamber. I'm not sure how much time we have. I realize that I can sprint ahead of Amy and Dennis, or I can hang back and give them cover. Keep shooting to cover the others. Go inside where the guy is, I say. I'll make sure we don't have any of those things right on our tails. I'll hold him back for a while. I know it sounds macho, but it also feels like the right thing to do. I have to at least try to give us some kind of chance for escape. So as Amy and Dennis run through the doors, I blast at the next thing I see moving. All I get from my troubles is that static-like hiss. and a high-pitched whistling noise. I am able to beat them back for a bit, forcing them to scatter. Each flicker of light is a small victory. If nothing else, I'm buying Amy and Dennis time. When I'm certain there is nothing more I can do, I turn and run. I hustle quickly, catching up to Amy and Dennis, who stop and turn to provide me with cover fire. "There," Amy says, pointing to a small door where the man was standing earlier. The swarm is less than 15 feet away now, so furious that they are pushing through one another to get to us. I raise the handgun and fire, taking my time to aim. I hit one in the spider-like part of its body. I fire again, and this time taking one in the core. I place 2 more rounds into this creature, eventually causing it to move backwards. We are in the middle of the hangar floor now, with the isolation chamber ahead and the monsters behind. Behind me, Dennis also fires. The kick of the gun jolts him, probably a result of him being weakened from the blood loss. His shot lands true, though, causing a jerking stumble and a flickering of its light. "We're almost in," Amy yells as we get close to the door we hope will save us. Piss on you two, dude. I'm dashing inside here. I waste no time heading for the room. That made me sound like a bitch. I basically leap forward towards the door, already feeling a little more secure. I nearly shout for joy when I reach the frame. Then I feel something hot seep onto my back. "Roger," Dennis yells. The pain in my back is so immense I barely notice the fact that I am being lifted from the floor. I look down and see that one of the creatures is using his floating arms to grab me by my waist, its tentacles wrapping around me. It lifts me into the air, as if presenting me as a trophy to its friends. I try to focus, attempting to angle my arm in a way that will allow me to aim the handgun and place a bullet in its body. But it is shaking me violently, and its body parts are appearing and disappearing in a way that makes no sense, another oddity of its structure. I can literally do nothing more than hang there like a rag doll, hoping to be saved. As it continues to hoist me up, screeching its approval, Dennis comes back out of the room and fires off a shot. The bullet catches the monster on the underside of its core, sending it backwards and causing it to freeze for a moment. It releases me and I hit the ground, dropping my gun and again finding myself unable to breathe. I feel slightly dizzy, but that fades when I see Dennis is still standing outside of the door. He's firing into the beast like a madman and doesn't see the one to his left, coming in along the edge of the wall. "Dennis, look out." Hearing my voice, he turns to look directly at me, but this is the opposite of what he needs to do. Behind him, the creature glides up, shaking back and forth in space as it moves. By the time Dennis turns and sees the creature coming, it has already drawn several of its appendages back to strike. Dennis tries to raise the gun, but it's knocked away by one of the tentacles. A second tentacle strikes, and Dennis is spun around and thrown off balance by the attack. Dennis catches himself before falling. A third tentacle wraps around Dennis's forearm, and I can see it squeeze, tightening instantly. The tip of the appendage passes clean through his hand, its blood-soaked tip poking out through his palm. Dennis's face grimaces with pain as he tries to wrench his arm free, but the creature's tentacle has his hand speared like a nail through wood. In a moment of dark clarity, I realize that I can free him with a clean shot at the monster's tentacle, but it will likely mean blowing Dennis's hand off. "Dennis," I yell over the creature's high-pitched static sound. "Can you get free? I have a shot. Maybe." "No." Dennis gasps as the creature tosses him around by his hand like a puppet. "Don't shoot, I can get free." I can't tell if he's right, but the other monsters are starting to encircle him. I need to act fast. Fuck. I'm just gonna shoot his fucking hand off. Oh God, Jesus. If I don't take the shot while I have it, they're gonna kill him. In the last ditch effort, I tried getting a good shot on the monster, but there is none. I'll hurt Dennis even worse if I try. I take aim and fire off a shot. The shot lands perfectly and results in a lot of blood and screams for both Dennis and the creature. Dennis's hand disappears into a spray of red, and the monster's appendage simply fades away, literally seems to wink out of existence. The creature screeches while Dennis hits the floor, wailing in pain. The reality of what I've done sets in and nearly paralyzes me. "Get him," Amy says. "I'll cover you." I nod, still reeling from the sight of what I have done to Dennis. I stumble out of the door. Amy's true to her word. She fires off a few rounds into the approaching monsters as I make it to Dennis. I grab a hold of him with my good arm. I drag him backwards as fast as I can, nearly falling down in the process. When I reach the doorway, Amy reaches down and helps me drag his body the final few feet into the room. She manages to pull off another shot, and when I look to see what she has hit, I see another dozen or so of the monsters. Dennis is writhing in pain, and when he looks up at me, he is sneering. "You crazy asshole," he screams. He shudders violently, sweat and tears coursing down his pale face. Amy slams the door behind us. Finally, we're inside the room, hopefully safe within what looks to be an isolation chamber of sorts. Along the frame, a little electrical lock beeps as the door is secured. In Chapter 4. This is the final chapter. Oh, I hope this chapter doesn't take ages to do. Oh, you and 49% of players shot to weaken the creature, not to kill it. You and 41% of players distracted the creature instead of shooting it. You and 57% of players took the handgun instead of the shotgun. You and 57% of players disobeyed Dennis's wishes to not shoot, causing him to lose his hand. Let's begin chapter number 5. Last chapter of the game. We are now inside a large reinforced chamber of sorts, almost like the inside of a submarine. Near us is the door, shut tight. Far away from us along the back of the wall are all sorts of controls and monitors. It seems clear that this metal door is impenetrable, at least to them. I'm fairly sure that they aren't getting in. Dennis looks like a walking corpse, and I do everything in my power to not let this show in my expression. His face in a grimace, he shouts out at me, "To hell with you." What were you thinking? Blood pools on the floor below wherever he holds his arm. I say nothing, it's all too much. My brain feels like jelly. "We need to get him some help or he's going to bleed to death," Amy says. We're interrupted by a man's voice booming behind us. "Just what in the hell do you think you're doing?" the man roars. He's an older man who seems to exude power and authority. But he also looks tired and scared. I assume this is Barksdale. He walks over to us from the back recess of the chamber. "We didn't have a choice," Amy responds. "We had to." "Did you override the locks on the hangar doors?" Barksdale demands. "Yes, I did, but we had to." "Do you have any idea what you could have done?" Amy doesn't answer right away. She's furious, but she's also scared and visibly exhausted. "Who is this?" I address my question to Amy, preferring to get my info from her rather than whoever this is. The man doesn't break eye contact with Amy. "Ooh, Colonel Barksdale. He runs the place," she says, annoyed. "Look, Barksdale," she says, "you can berate me and lecture me all you want when this mess is over, but right now I have a wounded civilian here, and as you can see, several entities trying to get into this room. So if you could actually do something instead of sitting on your throne and yelling at me, that would be great." I am impressed by her guts and wonder if there is some sort of beef between the two of them. Surely working in a place like this could cause some stress and tension between people. As we wait, I notice a small peephole in the door. I go to and look out to see the things. They're still looking for a way in, but finding no success. I'm gonna flip them off. I can't help myself. I hold up a middle finger to one and smile defiantly. I get a blast of high-pitched sound in response. "You'll be reprimanded for speaking to me in such a way," Barksdale says to Amy. "Reprimand me all you want. I'd like to survive this first." "Cover your ears," Barksdale shouts, walking away towards the far end of the room. "Stay put until you hear back from me." "Thank you," Amy says with fire in her voice. She then turns to me and says, "Better do what that man says." Cover ears. I clap my hands over my ears just in time to protect my hearing from a deafening blast. I am still bleeding, and the sudden movement to cover my ears makes me feel dizzy. Dennis clumsily covers one ear with his hand and one ear with his bandaged arm. When I see the shape he is in, I get myself in check. Compared to Dennis, I'm in tip-top shape. I did that. I took the shot that took his hand off. I need to make all of that mean something. More burst of a loud explosive noise starts ringing out. Looking through the peephole again, I see the core of one of the beasts explode. It vanishes in a puff of smoke and clear liquid. Looking to my left, I see Barksdale in a shooting stance at the far side of the room. He's firing through a small slit in the wall. He's using some high-powered weapon that looks the likes of which I've never seen. I see a slight movement as the gun kicks, accompanied by a flicker of white light. Immediately, another monster is down, its tentacles flailing around aimlessly as most of its core is torn through. I instantly feel gratitude and an immense satisfaction in knowing that they are being picked off in such a way. Just sit down and rest. I slide down against the door and simply wait, listening for the occasional patter of what I assume is their blood on the wall. I don't know how much time passes, maybe 5 seconds, maybe 5 minutes, and I don't care. It feels nice to lay down. When the firing is over, I barely even notice it. Soon after, Barksdale walks back over to our side of the room. They're all gone, Barksdale says, and I have resealed the hangar doors. How'd you kill him like that? I ask. Classified weapons that, quite frankly, you have no business being near. Amy gets to her feet and returns to the painting on the wall. Thanks. How badly are the civilians hurt? Barksdale asks. One is in very bad shape, Amy says. He's lost a hand and a lot of blood. The other one's not too bad. I see a laceration on his back, and that's about it. Okay, I'll have Strickland get a med kit. Strickland survived? Amy asked, sounding cheerful. Yes, and until you and your friend showed up, I thought we were the only ones. Hang tight, she's on her way. With that said, he retreats away to the back of the room as if he can't stand to be around us. Amy approaches me and looks me over. You're in good hands. Strickland will be able to fix you up. Is she a doctor or something? Sort of. She's also a physicist, but oddly enough, she spent time as a trauma nurse in the army. Is Strickland a friend of yours? I ask. Amy chuckles. Yeah, we've known each other for a while. The only woman in a sea of overachieving men. Barksdale sounds like a prick. It's because he is, Amy says, but he runs this place, so he sort of has the right. Yeah, Washington, or a facility buried under the woods of Kentucky, gender roles stay the same, she says, rolling her eyes. Within a few seconds, the door behind us opens and a woman appears from back further in the chamber. She enters the room with what looks like a small suitcase. She is dressed in a very basic and drab military getup, complete with a holstered sidearm. My name is Connie Strickland, she says. I could patch you guys up pretty well, but it's gonna hurt. She looks closely at Dennis, looking him over with precise care and attention. You're not in the best shape. He responds in a grunt. Seriously, I can fix you up, but only temporarily. You need intensive care for that arm. First things first, though. Strickland pours the liquid over his maimed hand and starts stitching. She then wraps his arm with 3 entire spools of gauze. Blood shows through right away. That's the best I can do for now, she tells him, giving him a sympathetic frown. I could care less, Dennis mutters. I'm a cripple. Do whatever you want, as though it matters. Strickland then looks to me. Sit down and let's see if we can get your shirt off, she says. I sit down slowly and start unbuttoning my shirt. She has to help me slip it off my shoulders, but we manage. How bad is it? Bad, she answers. It's almost like a burn, but I've seen much worse. Your friend here, for example. I might as well talk to Strickland, if only to distract from the pain. You're a scientist, too. Strickland rolls her eyes as she gathers up a needle and some thread. I was always into fringe science. I started in labs where these eccentric Russian scientists were being funded by the US to work on combining DNA types. I sort of became obsessed with perfecting humans' physiology while I was a trauma nurse in the army. You were a mad scientist then, I say. I get that a lot, but no, not compared to the stuff we do here. I don't even want to know. I don't even want to know. I could give a shit less. You sound like my mother, Strickland says. She wants to make sure I'm safe and cared for. She knows my job is sort of dangerous, but of course I can't tell her any details, so she just worries. Any other family? I ask. No. She says that she works on me. I'm a workaholic. No husband, no kids. It's always just been my job. And until about a month ago, I loved it. What happened a month ago? That's when the teams here stumbled onto what they thought was a big discovery, Amy says, answering for Strickland. Yeah, Strickland says. That big discovery resulted in 20-hour work days. I've been sleeping in my office for about a week now. When you guys ran in here, she says, I was horrified. Those barrels outside, I'm not sure if you saw them. Well, if you'd shoot them, it could have been bad. Why? I ask. Those gray ones are filled with an experimental fuel that is highly flammable. The yellow ones just contain liquid nitrogen. What? I ask, just laying around? Well, this area is the safest in the building, the most secure. Well, it used to be, anyway. And take this, she says, handing me 4 pills. Painkillers that won't work immediately, but they'll dull the worst of what you're feeling. Are these the best idea? I ask. Won't they make me dizzy or out of sorts or something? All I get in response is an annoyed and determined look. Take the pain meds. And this was story altering. Fuck. I dry swallow the pills as she starts working on me. She slathers the wound with some sort of liquid that stings like crazy, and I gasp. Grin and bear, just grin and bear, my brother. Ready to stab me yet? Strickland asks. I'm fine, I hiss. I grit my teeth in pain and try to catch my breath. Dennis comes out of his haziness and tries speaking to Strickland, but his words are slurred. White light from the ground, Dennis says. You think that caused the power outage? Think that brought the monsters out? Could be, Strickland says, but your crew was far enough from the facility, or at least we thought you were. Dennis chuckles in a way that makes him sound menacing. Nope, wrong. You thought wrong. So you and Barksdale are the only survivors, Amy asks. It seems that way. Those that didn't disappear into thin air were killed by those things, Strickland says, nodding to the secured door. How many were killed? I'm just curious. I'm guessing 30 or so, Strickland says. I'm not sure how many were scheduled to come in today. I'm glad to see you. Where were you when it happened? Amy asks. I was in the micro lab on level 2, Strickland replies. Park and O'Brien were there with me, and they just disappeared. Looked like they were being stretched, distorted, and then there was a ball of white light, then they were gone. The ball of light just annihilated everything it touched. Would it leave a perfectly round hole? I ask, a light bulb turning on in my head. We saw some of those up at the logging site. Yeah, and I saw a ball of white light too, Dennis chimes in. That was probably the same phenomenon, Strickland replies. Amy looks at the ground like a child that is afraid to ask an adult for something. Finally, she asks, where did they go? We don't know, Strickland says. It could be an infinite number of different dimensions, or even some dimensions that merge and mix together. It could also be a place that exists between dimensions. Barksdale calls it the void. I'd call it dead. No, she says. We keep tabs on heart rate, blood pressure, and breathing of all the rats and human test subjects. Wherever they go for that time, they are still very much alive. I went through the rest of Strickland's stitching, feeling the tug of my skin, but thankfully no more flowing blood. Finally, Strickland says, you're good to go. She looks over at Dennis one more time. He doesn't so much as stir when she rechecks her work. She's already having to remove the gauze off his wrist, as it's soaked through with blood. The wound looks like it's starting to clot, so that's good at least. I stare at the floor as Strickland does what she can. Will he make it? I ask. I'm not a doctor, Strickland says. Not really, but based on the bit I do know, I say it's about a 50-50 right now. So you and Barksdale have been able to contain all those creatures, Amy asks. Strickland appears shocked, clearly not the reaction Amy was expecting. Contain? Are you nuts? Do you not know what's happening? Amy's eyes widen in fearful confusion. What do you mean? What's happening? Other than the initial experiment failure. The anomalies are becoming more numerous and further from the source, Strickland says. The casual humor in her voice is now gone. What anomalies, damn it? The doorways, she says, the pockets of exotic matter, negative energy that are letting those things in. The failed experiment caused the first one, but it set off a chain reaction. They are gaining momentum along geodesics emanating from the facility. What the hell does that mean? Dennis asked. It means, Amy chimes in, that those doorways and monsters are starting to appear all over the facility, maybe even the surface. Not yet, luckily, Strickland says, but the doorways will start appearing on the surface, and it won't stop there. The anomalies' reach could extend infinitely. As far as we know, those entities will appear on the surface in other states, other countries. Holy shit, I say. You mean the world is going to be overrun? The horror of the past few hours has made me ready to believe anything, but this is almost too much. Unfortunately, yes, Strickland says. My God, Amy says, stepping away. Isn't there anything we can do? There's a last resort, Strickland says, her eyes darting over to Barksdale at the back of the room. There's an emergency failsafe switch. What? Amy says. I never heard of that. Where? You weren't cleared for it, Strickland replies. And that switch, Amy says, is a way to stop this? Yes, Strickland says, seeming uneasy with the conversation. What does the switch do? Before we go off asking a butt-fuck trillion questions. The switch is our eraser, she says. It destroys the entire facility and terminates any systems or experiments that are being conducted. It's also an emergency shutdown for interdimensional travel. It puts an event horizon around the facility. What the hell is that? I ask, incredulous. It's the perimeter of a black hole, she replies, the boundary inside which nothing can escape, not even light. But there's two problems with hitting the switch. So the first problem is we'd all be killed. Sucked into a black hole forever, we'd have time to evacuate. The second reason, Strickland whispers, suddenly quiet, is that Barksdale won't allow it. What? Amy gasps. Why not? He wants to allow those things to flood the surface? Thousands, millions will die. Strickland puts her hands up, silencing Amy. They both peer over to the far side of the room where Barksdale has his back turned. I know. He says he doesn't care. He says he'll be happy to get rid of the oversight so he can continue his work. The oversight? Amy almost screams, regaining control over her voice when Strickland gives her another look of warning. You mean our government? I ask. He's aware this could disrupt, even topple our government, and he doesn't care? Strickland sighs. Barksdale is... well, he's off the range right now. He's gone rogue, and he's armed. This comment makes me look towards the handgun I brought in with me. I'd nearly forgotten in the last few moments. While Barksdale has his back turned, I take it in my hands and slide it behind me. Just in time, too, as Barksdale walks over from the back of the room to our side of the chamber. He gives Strickland a suspicious look before speaking to her. Are the two civilians going to survive? He asks. Dennis chuckles at this, and I am relieved to see that his eyes are open. He gives a lazy thumbs up. One is stitched up and good to go, but the other one here is in bad shape. He needs immediate medical attention. Understood, Barksdale says. Amy, it's quite nice to see that you have survived. Were there any others? The aloof way this asshole was talking to us is getting under my skin. A guy named Marcus that works on the first level from IT, Amy says. That's all I know for sure. Marcus Papscott, Barksdale says. Where is he? I'm gonna lie, he was killed by those damn things. I didn't do it. I try not to let my eyes shift and give away my lie. Oh, Barksdale says, I see. Barksdale seems to think about something and then looks directly at me. You're with the logging crew, aren't you? Remind me, how did you get in here again? Through a building on the surface. Ah, makes sense. The cloaks for the entrance shed are tied and to a primary source, Barksdale says. And we lost primary power just before the experiment failed. Cloak? I ask. Yes, Strickland says. The shed you entered is usually not visible to the naked eye. Depending on the power sources that were damaged, Barksdale continues, it could have also shut down the locking systems before backups kicked in. Everything is starting to make sense now. From the very start, it had seemed peculiar that we'd so easily been able to walk into a place like this. What caused the experiment to fail? Your crew hit one of our main power lines. We weren't exactly sure how, but we know that's what did it. You're trying to blame all this on me? I roar. The timing was unfortunate, Barksdale says. So where's the rest of my guys? Your crew, Barksdale says. Frank and Joe, they're gone. Gone? Gone where? Dennis asks, his voice trembling. They were annihilated by antimatter pockets created during the failure. A bright ball of light destroyed them. In the aftermath, all you'd see would be a round hole in the ground. Barksdale says, this is like he's sharing yesterday's sports scores. I let my face crumble into my hands. I had suspected this all this time, and they were already dead. Behind me, Dennis lets out the beginning of a sob. Damn it, damn it, he mutters over and over. So, Amy asks, what do we do now? Now it's time to continue our work, Barksdale says calmly, turning away to the instruments on the near wall. I'm keeping quiet. This ain't my fight. This guy sounds like a complete lunatic, but he's a lunatic that's accustomed to power and armed with some type of advanced weaponry. So I keep my intentions unspoken, assuming Barksdale is used to going unchallenged by people he considers beneath him. He certainly seems like that type. I want to continue my work, Barksdale says. Muses. Other researchers will eventually discover what we have, sure. But I want it to be me. This is my laboratory. These are my experiments. The work I've led here will earn me my place in history. And quite frankly, I don't need to explain it to you. Up on the surface, they'll struggle to defend themselves since they won't know what they're dealing with. I have the necessary weapons. After a few months, who knows? Maybe I'll decide the world is ready for me to help them, and we'll go from there. He turns his back to us and says this, walking to the far side of the chamber, like for some kind of distraction. Amy takes this opportunity to whisper to us. We need to hit that switch, she says. It's the only option. What he's saying is murder, treason, genocide. She looks over to Strickland for support, trailing off. But Strickland looks at the ground, clearly torn. She won't look anyone in the eye and makes an effort not to look at Barksdale. He seems distracted with whatever instruments he's studying on the far side of the room. The dreamlike quality I experienced earlier is wearing off. The painkillers seem to be losing their edge. Strickland finally whispers a response. Even if we do decide that we want to hit that switch, Barksdale won't allow us. To hell with him. Amy agrees. Where's the switch located, she asks. There's an elevator out in the hangar, Strickland says. Take it to the basement. The switch is at the end of the long tunnel. But Strickland never finishes. Two things happen at once as she speaks, her mouth stopping in mid-sentence. First a loud booming noise rings out, and then the top of her head seems to explode. Amy screams out in surprise, and Dennis and I jump back in shock as Strickland's body collapses beside me. Behind her fallen body, Barksdale is holding his experimental rifle, and now he's pointing it at us. Oh. Huh? Yeah, no shit. I love you. I wonder if Barksdale is even crazier than Marcus. He just shot a woman that worked for him to keep her quiet. Surely he won't have an issue with killing me. Now, Barksdale yells, no more whispering, no secrets, you three will stay in here. And get away from that door. If anyone whispers one more thing, I'll blow your heads off. My mind is racing to figure out a way to get through the secured door and into the hangar. Beyond that, of course, there was a fail-safe switch. Make a distraction. We'll die today. I try my best to be a good actor as I wobble on my feet a bit. I stop, start forward again, and then wobble some more. Amy's apparently catching on because she's at my side in a second. She looks over to Barksdale and says, he's lost a lot of blood. Let me check his wounds really quick. After he dared to talk to me like that? He's been through a lot, she argues. He's clearly delusional. Dennis seems not... Dennis seems to not quite know what's going on, but luckily Barksdale isn't paying attention to him. "You can check him back here," Barksdale says. "You have 30 seconds to get away from that door, or I will." I stretch out my acting skills and actually stumble to a knee. I make a show of trying to get to my feet and stand still for a moment. "I'm okay," I say. "I'm okay. I think As quickly as I can, I raise my gun and fire. I don't even take aim. I just fire in Barksdale's general direction. Barksdale takes off running as my shot misses wide. He runs for cover in the back of the room. That's all we need. Amy also fires a shot to keep him under cover as we head for the door. Amy pushes a button and the door swings open. Barksdale will be on us in a second, so we dash out into the hangar, ready to defend ourselves. All three of us run as fast as we can through the rows of barrels. Right away, though, Barksdale gunfire separates us. I hear a shot hit nearby as I dive down and realize that neither Dennis nor Amy is with me. I hear Amy cry out from elsewhere in the barrels. Peering around the barrel closest to me, I can see Dennis. He's crawling slowly on the floor 2 rows away from me. Seeing him move so slowly, I can't imagine how he's finding the strength to do even that. "Stop this nonsense," Barksdale yells at us. "I've got a good mind to shoot the fuel and kill all of you." It's then that I realize that not getting away from these barrels may be our death sentence. Before I can do anything, a shot comes from the isolation chamber. It's immediately followed by a pinging sound and a massive wall of heat. I feel the heat before I feel the force of the explosion. It occurs several rows ahead of me, and I can still feel the physical push of it. I hear Dennis scream and then the clanging of metal. That's when another barrel explodes, and then another. I realize that I could run back and help or try to get myself clear. I might not have enough time to do either before the next round of eruptions. What the hell should I do? Run back and try to help him. My instinct to help overcomes my instinct to survive. If I don't help them now, the exploding barrels will leave Dennis and Amy as good as dead. I turn to start heading their way, but I'm not quick enough. Another barrel blows between us and throws me back across the hangar floor. My face and arms scream with the unimaginable pain of deep burns as I am lifted from the ground and tossed forward by the explosion. I slowly muscle myself up off the ground and try to regain my footing. My entire body feels sore, begging me to just stop. When I look back for Dennis and Amy, the scene is not promising. Neither of them seems to be able to move on their own. Dennis is lying flat on his face, unmoving. Amy's about 20 feet away from him. She's wailing in pain and clutching her leg. Behind them, I can see Barksdale looking for a shot through the fire and evaporated liquid nitrogen. I fire off a single shot just to get him to duck back down. I look back out to Dennis and Amy and see the fire nearing the fuel barrels. I can maybe keep Barksdale pinned down long enough to pick them up one by one, help them walk to the elevators, but more barrels could blow any moment. I might only have time to save one of them. Dennis isn't moving, which really makes me think that he's like Big Boy Dad. Amy is hurt, but she's alive, so I'm going to help her. I take a deep breath and sprint back out into the open among the flames and the heat. Right away I start taking blind shots at Barksdale. He fires back only once and the shot goes off right into the growling fire around me. I take one more shot and then reach down for Amy. She's coughing and looks dazed. Her leg has been burned and scraped badly. "You okay?" I ask. She only nods as I help her to her feet, the fire licking up around us. I help her towards the elevator, narrowly avoiding the fire and hot death. Somewhere through the smoke, Barksdale shoots into the flames. He gets another shot off as we round the corner to where the elevator waits. Amy leans against the wall, gasping for breath. Drenched in sweat and feeling like I've just escaped a furnace, I know I have to try to get Dennis as well. I wheel around, gun aimed into the smoke, and head back out. I only get a single step before I see Dennis slowly getting to his feet. I open my mouth and call out for him, but another explosion right beside him cuts me off. He's engulfed in flames. It's over. I scream and run out for him, but Barksdale is firing at me again. After everything, Dennis is gone because of Barksdale, a raving lunatic. I scream at him as hatred and rage rises up in me. I want to rip Barksdale to shreds, no matter the cost. I'm killing his ass. I start unloading bullets in Barksdale's direction like I'm on a warpath. Barksdale, you son of a bitch. I scream as I start to head in his direction. I barely hear what sounds like a laugh start to emerge out of him when I'm jerked back behind the cover of the elevator entrance. He's gone, Roger. I'm sorry, he's gone. Amy pleads as she forces me behind cover. I resist her for a moment and then give in, just as another deafening shot takes out a chunk of concrete a foot over my head. The best way to get back at Barksdale for what he's done is to flip that switch, Amy says. My nerves are drenched in fear and adrenaline. When I reach out to press the call button on the elevator, it feels like I'm watching someone else do it. As Amy and I step inside, the monitors on the elevator squeal like dying dogs. The elevator slides down and the light from the flames gives way to complete darkness. And now it's just me and Amy. Dennis is gone. I lose track of how long the elevator descends. It's hard to tell due to the lack of lighting, but it must go for another 500 feet underground. The elevator comes to a stop with a shuddering clang, and I waste no time exiting. A tunnel stretches out with sparse white bulbs, white bulbs lighting the way. Most of the wall is made of raw earth and rock, but there are boards and concrete slathered in areas used to reinforce the tunnel. I see a warning sign posted on the wall. I want to read it, but there's not much time. Head through the tunnel. There's no time. The switch is down the tunnel and it needs to be flipped no matter what. Suddenly, I feel the effects of painkillers again. My head feels like a balloon and my balance is off kilter. I look up, and when I see that the tunnel ceiling is less than 6 inches over my head, claustrophobia freezes me for a moment. The ceiling is not high at all, but there's barely enough room for Amy and I to walk side by side, which is for the best because her leg is clearly causing her a great deal of pain. She's soaked in blood and hobbling along. I don't think I can go any further, she says, wincing but trying to keep her composure. Sit down, I tell her. I'll be back. There is no sense in chancing further injury to your leg. She nods and I help her down. She shudders in pain as she eases into a sitting position on the floor. Thanks, she says. The switch should be at the end of this hall, if Strickland was right. I look up, and when I see that the tunnel's ceiling is less than 6 inches over my head, claustrophobia freezes me for a moment. Still, it is much better than facing the monsters above me. I wonder then, walking through the darkness where they came from, is the portal still open? It's almost completely dark. I hold the gun in one hand and reach out to touch the wall with the other. Feeling the gun there in my palm anchors me to reality, to sanity. I am not in some boundless abyss, but still in the real world. For a little while longer, at least. I recognize that I am marching to my end. As much as I wish I weren't, it's not surprising. From the moment I saw what those creatures could do to time and space, at least a part of me knew that death was inevitable. Before I have time to wonder what will happen, I see a light ahead. It's nothing more than a speck of blue light, but in the darkness of the tunnel, it's like a lighthouse on a stormy sea. I slog forward, my eyes straining to focus on that little light ahead. For somewhere ahead, I start to hear something that sounds like water. It is trickling lightly, like a leaky faucet. And behind that, there is something that sounds like wind, a light breeze through an open field, and a voice. Anywhere else, the sounds would have been pleasant, but here in the blackness of the tunnel, they're menacing. I'm staying quiet. I don't make a sound, instead trying to make sense of what's going on around me. I clock my head trying to concentrate, and then I realize that I can see the tunnel walls now. This is odd, as I wasn't able to see them a few seconds ago. This is different from the blue light at the end of the tunnel. It's then that I see the light shimmering in the air. It looks like a foggy mirror steamed over after a shower. And it's moving, dancing in the air like some abstract firefly. It's not menacing like the creatures, so the threat is null. It's peaceful, serene. I watch as this shimmer branches out and becomes 2, then 3, then 4. They snake out in different directions, tracing the tunnel walls. Are these shimmers the doors to another dimension that Strickland was talking about? Suddenly, I'm surrounded by light above and below me and realize there's no avoiding it. The question is, how am I going through? I stick my head through and feel a tingling sensation, almost pleasant. I reach out slowly, my hand stretching out to one of those shimmers of what I can only assume are some kind of light. They're hypnotizing, so much so that I don't realize that the tunnel walls are vanishing. I feel something like wind and brief electrical pulse pass through me as the lights take me. There is then a very gentle pushing sensation, and I somehow know that I am being expelled. I have passed through something. Maybe the lights, maybe the tunnel walls, I don't know. But the shimmering lights fade a bit, still dancing in the air, but no longer large and branching out. And as my eyes adjust, I see right away that I am no longer standing in the dark tunnel far beneath the hangar. I have no idea where I am. I'm just somewhere else, and I'm terrified. Holy shit. The ground I land on looks like hot coals. There are dips and many cliffs breaking the landscape ahead of me. There's a wash of orange and blue overhead in a sky that makes no sense. It is both beautiful and terrifying at once. A scattering of stars hang overhead, and they all seem to be breathing, pulsing with a gentle energy, as if alive. I can't tell if there are clouds in the sky because everything about it, from the colors to the trembling horizon line, seems to be amorphous. Everything is knitted together, living. I stare a moment longer and can swear I feel the sky breathing. Far off to my right, I see what looks to be a plume of fire, small yet bright, with no source of fuel. It looks as if the ground itself is creating the flames. Several more of these flames dot the landscape further out. The air is thick and muggy. Then I realize something horrible. I don't know if what I'm breathing here resembles air at all. In a place like this, one of impossible beauty, but also very stark horror, my mind doesn't know what to do. A wave of nausea comes over me, and I think I might be sick. I'm not sure if it would be better to fight it or to give in. The white light that brought me here now is somehow to be found. The white light that brought me here is nowhere to be found. Is anyone else here? Is anyone else even here? Is there any way to escape? I take a deep breath of whatever otherworldly gas is filling this place and belt out as loud as I can. Hello? Hello? Is anyone else here? Anyone? I hear a voice in response. It is faint, distant. I turn and hear it coming out of one of the massive crevices along the ground. Inside of that crack, about 10 feet down, a very pale man lies on a ledge. He is human, but looks close to death. He is in the center of a large pool of blood. His left leg has been twisted and torn in an unnatural way. As I walk out to the ledge, he looks up and sees me. "Help me, please," the man says. His eyes are wide, although everything about him speaks of weakness. He is close to death or insanity, or both. "Who are you?" "I'm Dr. Connor." He strains to get out. "I work in the facility. Please help. I want to know more, but it seems cruel to steal what look like his last breaths just to answer my questions." "I'd love to," I respond, "but I don't know where the hell I am or how to get back home." "The light," he says, "it's a doorway. It might take you back to the facility." "Where did it go?" "They come and go. They'll be back. Now please help me. I desperately want help, but there's no way I can reach him. His ledge is too far away above the pools of fire. I don't think I can get to you," I say. "No, that's not what I mean," he replies. His eyes are on the handgun that I almost forgot I'm still holding. I realize what he wants, and I shake my head. "I can't," I say. "I can't do that." "Please," he pleads. "Those things, they have the others that came here with me. I got dropped along the way. They'll be back. They'll be back and they'll kill me. That," he says, again indicating the gun, "will be quicker, less painful." "I can't," I repeat. "Please, look at my damn leg. I'm dead anyway." I'm about to refuse him again when I hear an all too familiar static sound sound out from another crevice behind him. I hear another one of those shrill noises in the watch as one of the monsters materializes out of the neighboring crevice. Two more come out after it, then a third, then 5, then 10. Soon I lose count of what just turns into a flood. And I suddenly understands the man's reasoning. A bullet would be mercy. I check the gun and see that I have only 1 round left. I can use it on this guy, but I may need it for myself later. From behind me, the man pleads again. My God, he says, a weaver of lunacy in his voice. Please, I'll shoot his ass. I look back to the man and wince. I know it's the right thing to do, but my finger resists. With a roar of disgust, I level the gun towards his head, turn my eyes away, and then pull the trigger. Your aim is true. The man crumples lifelessly to the ground. That's when I see the shimmers wavering to my right, the direction I originally came from. I look back to the monsters and see that they have now noticed me. Some of them begin floating up the walls of the crevice. There are less than 10 feet separating us. The shimmers of white light are within arm's reach, its movements reminding me of a fish in an aquarium. I reach out and feel myself accepted by them again. I feel the sensation of wind and wait for the feeling of being pushed out, back to the tunnel in the facility. But it doesn't come this time. This time I feel something else. I feel a tug sensation that seems to want to drag me in all directions at once. As the world goes dark, I realize that I am somewhere else and it is not in darkness of the tunnel. This is the darkness of a total void. There is darkness around me, everywhere, nothingness. I feel nothing under my feet, nothing to my sides. I can't touch or sense anything at all. I don't even know which way is up or down. It's as though I am all that exists. And as I remain there, I just hear silence, not even the sound of my heartbeat. The blackness is so deep that I feel I can't distinguish between my thoughts and what is real. I hear screaming, but I can't tell if it's something else or my mind screaming to fill this void. I try to kick and move my arms. It's not working. But it's not clear in what way it's not working. Are my limbs not moving, or have they gone numb? It's impossible to tell. My body's just become absent of all sensation. I assume this is the place that Strickland referred to. The place between dimensions. This darkness could consume me if it wanted to. I try to will myself out of it. I have to have those shimmering lights spit me out, but it isn't happening. At this point, my mind starts to hallucinate, or at least I think it does. Are they visions? My mind playing tricks on me? I can't tell. All I can do is watch. I see the logging site and Tony's leg still pinned under the dozer. I feel a pang of regret that I had left him there in such a state. I see myself talking to Dennis, and he looks distraught as I tell him that Tony is gone. Then the scene rearranges itself, and I'm watching as Marcus points his gun at Dennis. I'm too scared to help. It changes again, and the shape of Marcus's body appears in front of me, half devoured, a bullet through his head. In my mind, I'm sobbing as I shoot off Dennis's hand, trying to convince myself it was the only way to save him, but he'll never forgive me. I try to let out a scream as Amy and I watch Dennis get blown apart by Barksdale's rifle, but there's still no sound. And just then, when I feel like I can't take any more of this, I see the man in that strange world, begging for death. I watch as I take his life just before those beasts reach him. All of those things are flooding my mind, and it feels like my brain is vomiting. Yet, in the midst of it all, I see what's really important, the switch. In my mind's eyes, I see that glowing light in the tunnel. The one far ahead, small and distant. I can't understand how I can do anything in this place, so I just try to embrace and empty my mind. The light that brought me here is back. It's becoming brighter, shining through the image of the tunnel. With that, I feel the wind again, a light breeze that seems to come from everywhere. And then, with a relief that I can only imagine feels like death, I move forward. I'm ejected from the void and am suddenly standing in the tunnel again. I let out a wail of triumph that turns into a bout of weeping. The weeping only intensifies when I see the light up ahead of flickering blue lights. Somewhere behind me, I hear a crackling noise. I think of Amy down that way and by the elevator. Have they reached her? There's no way I can find out. For now, I have to keep on my plan. Besides, if it works, we're all gone anyway. I feel like I can listen to get a better read on where they are, or I can just make a break for it. I don't even bother looking back. There's no time. Instead, I run with all my might straight ahead, my focus on that little blue light ahead of me. As I run, I see a different light, a white one, flicking in my peripheral vision. It's another one of those shimmers that go to other worlds. It seems like they are appearing and disappearing with more frequency now. Strickland was right. These things could reach the surface soon, unleashing more monsters. This thought makes me refocus on the blue light, the man-made light, the switch. The blue light gets closer, and as it does, I make out a square shape around it. This has to be it. The familiar static scream of the monsters is much closer now. I have to be quick. I grip the gun tightly, regretting my decision to use the last bullet on the man in the other world. Looks like all I'll be using for this is a bludgeon. I run ahead into the darkness, my eyes locked on the switch that I assume is going to kill not only the creatures but myself as well. As I approach, I see the lever. It's covered by a glass box that I will need to break. The blue light is directly beneath this, highlighting a series of tubes and wires that snake into the inner workings of the device. In the middle of the blackness, not like a darkly colored part of the machine, but just whole in reality, it looks like there is some sort of an illusion. All the while I can hear the static of the creatures coming up dangerously close now. I have no idea how much time I have. Smash the glass. Smash the glass, let's get this over. I drew back the stock of the gun and smashed through the glass box that houses the lever. The glass shattering is like music to my ears. I reach out for the lever, my hand grasping it. Without warning, I feel immense pain course through my body. It feels like the fire racing down my back, causing me to fall on one knee in agony. There's only one of them that I can see. It blasts horrible static noise at me as I ready my gun. With no bullets left, I get ready to use it as a club. I try to strike. The monster bats the gun away, warping it into an S shape. It then follows up by swinging its appendage at me. The sting of its touch forces me back against the side of the cavern, my face striking the wall hard. My jaw crunches as I feel a sharp pain encompass my head. Then the creature is upon me again. Its tentacles melt into me and I scream. I can't help it. I sound like a wild animal. I can try to keep fending them off, or I can go for broke and just focus on the lever. Creatures be damned. I put all my strength into my legs the moment the monster is in front of me. The moment the monster in front of me draws back its eel-like arms to grab me, I pivot backwards. My back strikes the machine, sending agony rocketing through my body. I'm so thankful that I broke the glass before this moment, before the coming violence. I stretch out and grab the lever. With one last desperate scream that shreds my voice, I jam it down. The tunnel is suddenly filled with a flash of intense darkness. It expands from the switch, swallowing the matter around it. At first, I'm sure that this is the end of me. I expect the darkness to consume me, followed by death. But then another shimmer of dancing white light appears next to me. There are more of those streams of light, rips in space, like the ones that previously sent me to that other ungodly world in the void. With nothing else to do but die, I try to escape the shimmer. When that stream of light envelops me, the expanding darkness of the switch is gone, and I feel a huge push. Ooh, galaxy, that's pretty. My body feels stretched, collapsing, like I'm falling in all directions at once. The world goes white, and there are the pinpoints of stars everywhere. One of them breezes directly by my right, and I see something that looks like a spiral galaxy distorted in its folds. To my right, I see an endless stretch of stars and gas clouds forming some galactic architecture. But beyond the immeasurable beauty, I notice something. I'm seeing the same star patterns over and over. They're repeating like reflections in an endless mirror. Are these different versions of the same galaxies, the same realities? To my left, I see a calm blue world. I can barely make out trees, familiar Kentucky trees that I've been around for the last few weeks. To my right, I see a copy, an orange world, and there are trees there as well, but something is strange, disturbing. As I zoom by, I'm not sure how much control I have in this unusual place, but if I can distract myself, it's worth trying. I try to focus my mind on heading towards the orange world, not knowing what to expect. My breath escapes me for a moment. Everything is dark and peaceful and nothing hurts. With breath back in my body, I gasp and open my eyes. I'm back at the logging site. How? I'm not sure. Did the shimmers react with the implosion of the switch? Some other accident? I have no idea. I sit up right away and become instantly dizzy. Amy, I say. There's no reason to think that she survived whatever happened in that tunnel, but there's some sort of certainty that gets me to my feet. I wonder if I am somehow back in time before we found the facility, but what happens next makes me realize that can't be true. I feel a tremor in the ground somewhere off in the distance. I hear a metallic groan. The buried facility. It's being ripped apart under the ground by the activation of the switch. Trees are splintering and falling to the east, and I can see them going down like abstract dominoes. There's no way Barksdale survived. Good riddance. I start to walk away in the opposite direction of the falling trees, but then I hear a scream, a woman's scream. I turn back and see a stumbling figure come across the forest. It's Amy, and she looks like a ghost. How is she here? Did she fall into one of the shimmers as well? I decide I don't care and run to her. I throw my arm under her armpit and hook her to me, and as we head back to the logging site. You okay? I ask. Amy can only nod through her tears. I look to the one area where the facility tore through the woods apart and see a large plume of smoke rising up into the air. We've made it out of the facility alive, and that, I suppose, is the most important thing. But something feels off in a way I can't quite explain. It's then as I look up and notice the sky that it starts to sink in. There's something different about it, something not right. The sky does not belong here. It is a sky of oranges and blues. Stars pulse in and out as if alive. The colors of the sky seem to breathe, as if they are trying to inhale the tops of the spruce trees. I see those colors all knitted together and living. My stomach rolls and a scream of confusion and fear rises up in my throat. What the hell have I done? And that is the end. Oh my God, that took long enough. Jesus criminy. Alright, well, let's see, that's all the time that I've got.